And now I'm going to introduce today's speakers. We're going to go in reverse order. Travis is the Director of Development at the Southern Arizona AIDS Foundation and earned his CFRE just last year. He is a graduate of Arizona State University, and in addition to being an Association of Fundraising Professionals board member chairing our Government Relations Committee, he also sits on the board for the Children's Museum. Yay, Travis! Alba is the Executive Director at Arizona Oncology Foundations. Congratulations, Alba, on your amazing new promotion, and has been in fundraising for 27 years. She has raised much needed funds for organizations such as the Boys and Girls Club, American Cancer Society, Tucson Museum of Art, and has had her own consulting company. And Edna has worked in development for 18 years. She is a political consultant and fundraiser for Arizona Center for Women's Advancement, and also fundraised for the University of Arizona Health Sciences and Planned Parenthood Arizona. Edna has a law degree from the Sandra Day O'Connor School of Law, and she serves on the board of directors for our AFP chapter, as well as Planned Giving Roundtable of Southern Arizona and the University of Arizona Consortium on Gender-Based Violence. So Edna, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us this Friday morning. Want to start off by thanking Sarah, Ori, and Jerry for making this happen, and I'm very grateful for you. If you have questions for Travis and Alba and I, just small housekeeping, if you can wait until the end, and then we'll be very happy to answer all your questions. And the reference materials that I'll be speaking about this morning, I have provided those links to Ori, and she will be including them in the chat room so you can look at those, on your own time when you are able to do that. So first and foremost, want to start off this morning by acknowledging the land that we stand on, the land that surrounds us, the land that has been stewarded for generations by the Tohono O'odham and the Pascua Yaqui people, in full recognition and gratitude, realizing that we stand on their land. I also want to give recognition to two wonderful women who are directly responsible for me being here today. They are now gone to AFP fundraiser heaven, but while they were with us, they had a tremendous influence on me. The first, Simone Joyo, and many of us knew her through her involvement with the AFP movement. She was a powerhouse in the AFP movement, a force to be reckoned with, and she was not afraid to ask the difficult questions. She and her husband, Tom Ahern, often came to Tucson to do breakfast presentations for us. And one day we were talking, and I told her, hey, I'm thinking about taking the CFRE exam. And she looked at me point blank and said, I don't want you to think about it. I want you to do it. And if you knew Simone, you would know that that's a vintage response from her. And she went on to tell me, we can sit here and plan and think about planning and come up with metrics, or we can just get it done. And I thought, okay, I'm going to take the CFRE exam now. The other woman, Betty Howard Bergstrom, began fundraising in Chicago in 1976, was one of the original women in Chicago who gathered her friends around her kitchen table to discuss funding something called the Frank Lloyd Wright Foundation. And these women made it happen. Betty explained to me that as they were raising these valuable funds for the Frank Lloyd Wright Foundation, that people would say things to them like, oh, isn't that nice? The ladies who lunch, they're doing a little fundraising, or isn't that nice? They're, raising some money for the foundation. And these women were getting it done, and they were not receiving the recognition that they deserved. And she was very concerned about this and helped to create with others the official CFRE recognition. Sat for the exam herself, was one of the first in this country to receive the CFRE recognition, because she told me time and time again, Edna, this is a profession. So if there's anything you take away, at least from my portion of this presentation, remember we are development professionals. We have been doing this in the face of racial strife, in the face of COVID crisis. We are writing our grants. We are planning our events. We are cultivating our donors. We're dealing with board members. We're working with our CEOs while we are homeschooling, while we are dealing with financial crisis. And we do it because we are professionals. And those two women really helped me to realize that I wanted to sit for my exam. Part of this too included that when I took the exam, to my knowledge, there was only one other BIPOC person who had been certified with their CFRE. Margie Porta Edson, who's Senior Director of Development at the University of Arizona College of Engineering, was the only person I knew in our community who was BIPOC and had received her CFRE. And I thought, those metrics are not good. I am taking this exam. And I was already on board to take it. And late September 2009, as many of you may recall, the stock market crashed, and it crashed miserably. And in a short amount of time between the stock market crash and not-for-profits calling me at the Community Foundation for Southern Arizona, we were in crisis. You may recall programs were being cut off, populations were not being served, staff were being laid off, furloughs were occurring, salaries were being decreased. And at the Community Foundation, we were trying to examine what is the best way that we can address this crisis for our precious not-for-profit community. So we went out, we started asking people, do we do another grant round? Do we do a grant round for just regular operating costs as opposed to direct services? Is it an emergency loan program? And in having these conversations, I spoke with many CEOs and many board members. And I must tell you, I was stunned with some of the responses I was given. For example, well, Edna, we can't afford a fundraiser at our organization. Plus, that's not really a profession. Why would we pay someone to do fundraising? Another board member said to me, well, we'd be willing to hire a fundraiser, but what we want to do is we'll give them a percentage of the profits that they raise. Incidentally, hard no on that if you ever hear that, direct violation of the AFP Donor Bill of Rights. Another CEO told me that he just didn't see what the big deal was with having a fundraiser on staff. So he was more concerned about the money their org was losing. So Edna, can you just find a fundraiser that I can hire on a contract position so they can, quote, come in here and fix it? There is and was a misunderstanding as to what we do for a living sometimes. And I want to make it clear. Again, we are fundraising professionals. We are not street sweepers. We are not wizards. We don't show up to work every day with a magic wand. Although some days I'll tell you, I kind of wish I had a magic wand. We are not Olivia Pope and Scandal. We are not fixers. We are valued members of our organization who deserve to have a place in the C-suite of your organization. And if there is no C-suite, a position in your executive leadership. And I'll say it again, we're writing grants, we're cultivating events, we're making things happen in times of racial strife and economic strife. We are getting it done. And I've seen it time and time again with my colleagues in the community and my colleagues here at AFP, my colleagues in the Charitable Gift Planning Association. I am amazed and proud at how much we are achieving. And yet there are those who don't recognize that. So that sealed the deal for me. I'm going to sit for my exam. So I'm going to get into some basics about it with you. And then my fabulous CFRE colleagues, Alba and Travis, will cover their respective areas. The exam is, at least when I took it, and I checked the CFRE website a few days ago, this is what they're saying, 4 hours, 200 questions, approximately 25 questions per half hour. So in order for me to prepare for the exam, I did the same thing I did when I sat for the Arizona bar exam, and a portion of that exam was multiple choice. The CFRE is only a multiple choice exam. There is no essay component and there is no interview component. So it's important to remember that for this exam, indeed any multiple choice exam, it's not knowing the material that counts. It's how you test on the material. So I strongly recommend as you're studying for it to find a way to test yourself on it. So a couple of my friends created flashcards and they would just quiz each other back and forth on their lunch hour at work. Other friends of mine wrote outlines and then asked each other's questions from those outlines. What I did is I took the CFRE study guide that I used at the time, and please, whatever you do, use the most current CFRE study guide because the questions change from exam to exam. And in the back, there were 4 or 5 different practice exams. I got old school. I made a bunch of copies of these exams, and I started taking them over and over. At first, I studied the material, and then I would test myself. And the closer I got to the exam and I knew the material, I started doing just tests. And this is something I learned for the bar exam. You develop something called muscle memory. You become used to the fact that you have to do so many questions per hour, per half hour, and it allows you to stay on track. When you're actually in the study room taking it on a computer, I was allowed to skip questions that I wasn't sure of. And at the end, you're told you get a message. Don't forget questions 18, questions 84. Because if I couldn't come up with an answer right away, I didn't want it to take precious time from the other ones I did. And I found I had some extra time left. The exam has an 80% passing rate, which is very, very equitable. Believe me, the Arizona bar exam was not that generous in their passing rate. I remember thinking, this is great. This exam is equitable. Oh, and another thing, I took the Arizona bar exam in July, and we don't get our final results till October. With this exam, as soon as you're done, you leave the exam room and you get your results right away, which I just think is amazing. And you don't have to sit there waiting, did I or didn't I? If you don't pass the first time, it doesn't count against you if you take it again. And I would really encourage you to do so. For me, the CFRE has been helpful in many ways. And I'll be the first to tell you, I was the same Edna before I got the certification as I was the day after. But all of a sudden, headhunters started reaching out to me. And all of a sudden, I'm being told, and I was from the last 3 jobs I had, that my application was moved to the top of the batch because it showed to either those CEOs or those HR departments that I was willing to sit for the exam and study for it. You are tested on 6 different areas. They are donor research, securing the gift, relationship building, volunteer involvement, leadership management, and ethics. And you're asked a series of multiple choice questions in these areas. Usually there's the wrong answer that pops out at you. What I had to really work on was the other answers that all seemed correct, which is the best correct answer for the testing site. I have found that for me, it's been instrumental and very, very helpful. I feel very proud of this career that I'm in. And I'm someone who didn't learn English until I was 7 years old. I'm proud of my community. I'm proud of the people that I work with. And I just can't believe that the misconceptions that exist in our community do around fundraising. Whether you are creating a capital campaign or you're writing a grant or you're working with a donor who's unsure about how they structure their gift or in planned giving, it all matters. And we are all professionals and it all comes together for the higher good in how we do our work. The application process is the first step before you take your exam, and you can apply for free. If you go on to cfre.org, and again, Ori will have these links in the chat room, you can start your application for free. They ask you questions such as, where have you worked? What is your education? What types of gifts did you bring in? And to make it equitable, there's a point system for each area. So don't feel like if you've only done capital campaigns or if you've only done planned giving, you can't sit for the exam. They look at many different areas. And then once you come up with a certain point system, you're certified. You're allowed to take the exam and you set it up with the test site. And it is at that point that the fees come in. And I'm very proud of our chapter, very proud that we offer a scholarship in this area, and our fantabulous scholarship chair, Alba Rojas Zucar, will be covering that as part of her presentation. If you are a member of AFP, National Association of Charitable Gift Planners, or any of the affinity groups that CFRE.org has on their website, the fee for taking the exam is $700. And once you are certified, it's 3 years before you need to recertify again. And the certification is international. So if all of a sudden we were all to move to Paris tomorrow and start working there, our CFRE works in Paris as well, and Akron, Ohio, and London, and any other place you might move to. I'm just trying to, give you a range there. And the recertification is $400, again, if you're a member of an affinity group. And that application is not as long and not as arduous as the first one. Again, you talk about the work you've done and how much money you've raised, community involvement, things such as that. I remember at the time thinking I needed to save my money before I could sit for the exam. And that's what I get for not paying attention at the time that AFP had a scholarship. That one's on me. So whatever you do, if finances are an issue, what I did in my case, I just saved money for 3 months, but I know we have a scholarship process. For me, it is well worth the effort and well worth the investment in my professional career trajectory. I do want to make clear, there are some fabulous, brilliant fundraisers in our community who do not have their CFRE, and they're very, very good at what they do. If the CFRE exam isn't for you, that's okay. Alba and Travis and I are here to discuss why it mattered to us and why we did it. So keeping that in mind, I also want to congratulate, I just found this out this morning, our 2 new CFREs, Scott Matlag and Gemma Thomas, in the house with their CFRE. Well done. I'm always so happy to see when our own community is progressing in this area. That's right. Woo-hoo. So that's why the exam is important to me. But before I kick it over to Alba, please remember this. We are not wizards. We don't have magic wands. We are not street sweepers. We are not Olivia Pope in Scandal. We're not assigned to walk into an org that's flailing so we can fix it. We are fundraisers who are just as professional as the CEO, as the chief financial officer, and as the program directors. So thank you for joining us this morning. And now I happily kick it over to querida Alba Rojas Zucar.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'm going to start off with why I took the exam, because everyone takes it for a very different reason. And if your boss is telling you you should go get your CFRE, I want you to just kind of like have a come to Jesus with yourself and realize you need to want to get your CFRE before anybody else. You should do it for yourself. When I decided to get my CFRE, I didn't think about anybody else. It was something I wanted to do for myself. It was a personal certification. I knew my company wasn't going to pay for it because the CFRE is yours, just like your membership is yours. It's a personal certification. And let's face it, my board and my boss, they're not going to be the ones adhering to the ethics. And a big part of CFRE is the ethics, which I'm going to come back to. So if you're going to do this, do it for yourself. because I will tell you, it will put your resume to the very top of the chart. You will get more money. I mean, it's not the only reason you do it, but I will tell you, once you get it, I mean, know your worth, my friends, because once you get it, you should absolutely be advocating for more, because what you normally do on a daily basis just hit a whole new level of high. Because you now adhere, we always adhere to ethics, morals, and values with AFP, but CFRE is a whole new ballgame. I mean, your levels are higher, your standards are higher. And I will be that person who's sitting in a board meeting and everyone is dreading because they want to use their donor advised funds to buy tables and tickets for events. And the minute they see me in that room, they know it's game over. And they're like, oh my God, Alba, she's just so difficult. You know what? They'll have to get over it. I'll forever be difficult because they're not worth me losing my 501c3, and they're definitely not worth me losing my certification. Now, my testing experience, Edna can thoroughly enjoy this one because I'm the procrastinator of the group. I was like, oh, I'm going to take it with me to the Bahamas and I'm going to read it on the beach. Please, who are we kidding? I didn't start studying until a month before. Oh my God, don't do that, because I crammed, like crammed. I bought the every digital testing thing you can possibly imagine. I would test myself twice a day in the morning. I would test it in the evening. At one point, I was like, I thought I was going to totally snap. I called Edna and she was like, oh my God, you need to calm down. Like, go pour yourself a glass of wine and calm down. It's a test. And if you have this mindset right now, you're not going to remember anything. Like, relax, stop testing yourself, take a day off, refresh, go find your happy place, go find your mana, because it does make a difference when your brain is ready. And if you're spaz out, I'm like, I've got to get a really good score. And she was like, who cares what your score is? Just pass the damn test. And she's right. My advice to you is, who cares about the score? Nobody's going to see your score. Pass the test and move on with your life. It's a ridiculous test because it's a Jedi mind trick. I mean, it's true. There's 3 other questions that could be kind of, sort of, maybe it might work, and maybe it works in France, but it's definitely not going to work in Tucson. They don't care. You have to have the knowledge base to take this exam and know which of these questions are correct and move on to the next one. And if you get stumped, you do your pass. But it was just kind of a weird experience. I mean, 4 hours you can skip, but if you get up to snack, they watch you eat to make sure you're not cheating. It was really weird. I remember just being so wound up. And when I was done, I got to the car and I called my husband and I started crying. And he was like, oh my God, honey, I'm so sorry. Like, you can take it again. And I'm like ugly crying. Okay. And she was like, I said, no, I passed my exam. And he was like, for the love of God, why are you freaking out then? I'm like, coming down from that exam was ridiculous, but it was so gratifying. I mean, I love my kids and all, but that's like way up there in the achievement category, because there's just something to be said about some international certification telling you, you got it. You know what you're doing, keep doing what you're doing. So for me, it was a very personal decision to do it. Nobody, when I took mine when I was still at the Tucson Museum of Art, so I was there for 9 years, and nobody even knew what a CFRE was. But I will tell you, board, CEO, everyone was so excited after, because they knew what it meant for them. It means your donors are going to see that you're meeting with their CEO or with their chief development officer, and they have their CFRE. It all comes together for them because they know you are going to be a good steward of their money. And you would think that everybody would think that because we're part of AFP, but that CFRE is just like that cherry on top. They're like, fine, take my money. You're a good steward of it. I know you're going to follow every ethical guideline you have to follow. And you know what? Take that win, people, because the certification was worth it. I can't stress the ethic part enough. And I know we all have really difficult board members. At every job, there's always going to be one, but stick to your guns. I will tell you, not only will your CFO give you a hard time, that why aren't you accepting a gift? Don't you understand what it could mean for this organization? Remind yourself that no one is worth losing your 501c3. And your answer to your CEO and your CFO when you won't accept a shady gift should be, sure, I'll accept it, but what are we going to do tomorrow when we're all out of a job? Because we're about to lose our 501c3. I mean, no one on the planet, no gift is large enough to put your ethics in question. And remember, the certification is yours. It's not the organization's, it's not your CEO's, it's yours. So take care of it like your prized possession, because it truly is your prized possession, because it's a reflection of you, of what you do. When I changed jobs and I now run a foundation that does nothing but help cancer patients, we provide programs and services free of charge to those going through the roughest times of their lives. I normally do plan giving. I don't do plan giving in this job because it is unethical for me to have a conversation about somebody's estate when they're in the middle of a cancer diagnosis. I mean, it's just wrong on all levels. And the people that I work with, I could never do that to them. So ethics will forever come into play. There's a lot of people who work for cancer institutions that do planned giving. They're not doing planned giving with their patients. And if you're doing planned giving with the patients and you're that ambulance chaser, you're in the wrong job. I actually have a nutrition degree. I'm supposed to be a dietitian somewhere in the world. My junior year in college, Boys and Girls Clubs was looking for a special event coordinator. I'm like, oh my God, I've got to get some practice out there. This is going to be fun. It turned out to be my dream gig because I graduated from the U of A on a Friday, and Monday I started my full-time job, and I've never looked back. I love what I do. I love asking for money. I'm sure it makes my husband so embarrassed anytime we go out because I'm always talking about what it is I do and the people we help. But you have to love what you do. And getting your CFRE is just a reminder of why we do what we do and the passion that you have for what you do. Honest to God, if you don't love what you do, reach out to any of us and we'll help find you a new gig, because life's too short to not love what you do. And there's so many organizations out there that could be your passion match and be the reason you want to go get your CFRE, because you want to be bigger and better for them. So do it, find your passion. Cynthia, I oversee the scholarship committee, and Cynthia Wasco, I know that's on here. She was our new recipient for our CFRE exam. So, a year from now, we'll be able to congratulate her when she passes her exam. So hopefully we have fueled her passion. There is a webinar coming up on CFRE's website, and it's how to become a CFRE. If we're not impassioned enough for you and you just really want someone else to talk you into it, we won't take you personally. How to become a CFRE webinar is on the CFRE website. It's free, May 20th, 1 p.m. Eastern time. So if you're intrigued and you want to sit through another webinar, I highly encourage you to sit through it. They will give you the good, the bad, and the ugly, I guarantee you. But another reason for getting your CFRE, I have to tell you, is job security, because you won't need a job with a CFRE because they're always looking for you. When I was at the museum, I had been there 9 years. I had no desire to look for a new job. I loved what I did. And when the foundation reached out to me, I said, I'll meet with you, but I'm not looking for a job. I love what I do. And, 2.5 hours later, I was now in a new job. People will find you, because they believe in what you do and your reputation stands on its own. So remember, go get your CFRE for you. Do it for you. Remember your ethics. No one is ever worth you losing your certification that you took that ridiculous test for. No one is worth you redoing that. I just did my recertification last year during, COVID. I was like, okay, well, I'm running, we had lost our program manager. I was doing their job and my job. And I'm like, I tend to work well when my stress level's at 1,000, and decided to get my recertification at the same time. I'm like, it's not due till November. I'm gonna do it 2 months early, knock it off, be done. Do it. Greatest decision I ever made. Edna's the Obi-Wan Kenobi of talking you through the CFRE exam. So, you can talk to her. She'll tell you to take a back pill, get a glass of wine and get through it. Do your digital exams. Those little mini quizzes were fantastic. I hated them, but they were the greatest thing ever because they were so spot on. Remember, when you take this exam, 3 of those questions are Jedi mind tricks. So definitely do the exam so that you can remember which ones are the right ones, and how they phrase it is everything. That's all I have. I can move it on. Oh my God, I feel like Hollywood Squares. Travis, take it away.
Good morning. Well, I thought I would share a little bit about why I took it as well. I thought it might be helpful as one of the more recent folks to have taken sat for the exam to kind of tell you what it was like and maybe little tips and tricks of the trade as you're preparing. Um, but I think also what I hope people take away is that you can and should do this. And I think for some, there's like this air of mystery or this air of like it takes a long time to get my application together and I don't have time to study. And none of that's true. It's all possible. It's not that difficult, and you can and should do this. So, first of all, I want to say, getting my CFRE, has landed me this opportunity to sit with two, legendary icons here in the fundraising world, Alba and Edna. I'm in great company, but my story is a little bit different. When I stumbled into fundraising, that was about 7 years ago, almost 8, which is mind blowing to me. I knew nothing, and I heard about the CFRE, and I was looking for a career and looking for goals, and I latched onto that one really quickly. I was like, that's something I'm going to have right away. It takes 5 years of work experience. I'm gonna be taking that right after year 5, and so kind of had my eye on it and was watching, looking into what the process looked like for quite some time, but I really couldn't act on it. I was sitting there waiting for my 5 years of work experience so I could take the exam. But I'm competitive, and I think, at that time, if you don't know me, I'm very competitive. And at that time, I felt like I had something to prove. I felt like I needed some cred and to demonstrate that this career was meaningful to me and that this is the direction I'm going in, and I am a professional and I'm knowledgeable. And so I think for me, it was about proving what maybe I did or didn't know at the time, but I was committed to learning and growing and getting that CFRE. And so I will say the second I heard about it, I was like, oh, great, I'm doing that. What else? And I know for some folks, it's a little bit different. It's something they do after years and years and years of fundraising as a demonstration to themselves too, about what they've already known that they can do. And I think that's what I really took away from this process. I think, especially being a younger fundraiser, I'm in awe of some of these people that, I'm sitting on this panel with or gotten to learn from or sit beside at a breakfast. And I think what I took away was that I know what I'm doing. And I think so often we question, is this the right thing? And there's the exam answer and then there's the in the moment answer. And, I think there's always that self-doubt, no matter how many years you've been doing this. I think there's that self-doubt, but I think knowing that and accepting that is a good step. But I think proving that I know the test answer and know what the book says was important to me to demonstrate to myself, but as well to my, in addition to my organization and our donors, that, I care about this work and I care about doing it correctly, to the best of my ability and to what the book says. And I know that there may be times I don't do what the book says, but for the most part, it's just, I think it's a demonstration to, or a commitment to the field that we've chosen and that we do. So I think that's really what lit a fire under me, was to really kind of prove myself and have something under my belt. There's, there are, I think now, degrees for fundraising, but really, we're learning from each other and we're learning from doing the job. And so my first kind of tip and trick of the trade is I was amazed how much I knew already. And I say that not to toot my own horn, but I think I questioned, all of what I've learned. I've learned from my peers, or I've learned on the job, or I've learned sitting in these meetings. And it wasn't from a book and it wasn't from a course or a degree. We learned from each other. And so I think there was in my mind, I thought, is this really correct? When I started studying, I was like, what I've been taught, is this all correct? And it turns out it was. And so I was surprised to, never, some of these questions I had never seen, and to just go with my gut or go with what I had heard multiple times, 2-day turnaround for, acknowledgement letter. I'm like, is that really the answer? Because that's what everyone says. And lo and behold, it is the answer. So I actually really want to give a lot of credit to, the people in this room in our chapter that organize our professional development. I mean, everything I learned was from mentors and from doing the job and from AFP. And, I did study, but I was really surprised at how much I knew walking in. from these kinds of meetings and professional development opportunities. And so, without in the absence of a degree or, formalized courses, which can be really expensive, I felt so grateful to have learned from, people like Edna and Alba and Laura Alexander and Deb Dale. I mean, just people that have given so much to our chapter and have taught me so much, and they probably have no idea, but I was sitting there listening and I was sitting there absorbing, and so to spit it out on a test and be like, oh, thank God they were right, was really cool. So I think for those that, I think for some, there's kind of this block of, it's going to take me a long time. I'm gonna have to sit down and really do this thing. Actually, it doesn't take that long. So I was smart. I kind of pre-planned. So I kept every booklet from every conference. I would do that moving forward for all of you. And you can actually start your application at any point. It's free, as Edna said, and input these as you go. So even though I was not able to take the exam for 5 years, I actually had input some of my credentials well before. So that was helpful. I think especially as, I was like, what's that conference I went to 3 years ago? And what was the name of the sessions I sat in and who was the facilitator? So keep those booklets, mark the ones that you went to. It makes it so easy to input those. It does not take long at all. And I want to give a shout out to Jerry. I emailed Jerry and I said, do you keep record of the meetings we attend? She sent me a list of every meeting I had attended and how many CFRE points they were and who spoke and the topic. And so I was like, well, this is so easy. I'm just sitting there doing little data entry, so therapeutic. And PGRT did the same thing, sent me a list of all the breakfasts I had sat in, and there it was, just easy, plain and simple, putting in my education. And I have taken a few kind of courses, especially in the beginning. I did take some courses, but I had almost tripled the education goal metrics. It was well above and beyond the requirement for education, which I felt really grateful for as well. I will say it was I think we all think about our professional accomplishments and we think about metrics, I think especially when we're updating our resume, but it was a really enlightening process to go through for myself and to, I know my experience and I know what I've sat through and I've learned, but to really put it down and look at it, it made me really proud. It made me really proud to have so many education points, to be involved with boards and have so many volunteer points, to actually look at dollars raised, which I think we all are, may cringe and think like, oh my gosh, how do you calculate that? Or is it enough? It's probably enough. And just sit down and kind of look at that metric, I think was meaningful to me, but knowing that there's so many other metrics and accomplishments that are represented in that number and in the education points as well. But I think I've heard kind of some mixed reviews. I've heard the test is harder and I've heard the application is harder. I don't think the application is too difficult. It's just kind of doing some record keeping. And now that I'm certified, I actually already opened my recertification application. And so I haven't been doing this, but I was like, after every breakfast, I'm going to input my breakfast. And so I don't have to do it all at once, but I haven't been doing that. But Jerry knows she'll be getting an email in a couple of years, so I can make sure I get all those in. But what's nice is that you can do it as you go, as opposed to trying to do it all in one sitting. I do think that creates a block for people to think about, oh my God, I have to go and find 3 years worth of all this crap and who knows where it is. So there is the option to kind of do it kind of in the moment, or a little bit more frequently as you'd like. It's available to you, so you don't have to do it all in one sitting. It saves and is there for you when you log in every time. Which I think is great. I will say, so I am a very good test taker. I freaked out during the CFRE. First of all, you go to a testing center, it's dead silent. They like, they're like, you're going through like a radar detector. They're making sure you don't have anything on you. You have to stand in this place and don't move until they take you to your seat. And don't look at the other screens, and they give you soundproof headphones, and I had to wear a mask. This was kind of in the middle of the kind of climax of the pandemic, and I'd have never really gotten nervous taking a test, but 5 questions in, I was like, ooh, this is pretty hard. And then 20 questions in, I was like, I'm gonna fail. I was sitting there like, and like Edna, I think, touched on this. Every question I had it narrowed down to about 2 answers. But I would say the majority, I wasn't like, this is the one. There was always 2. I'm like, gosh, dang it. It really is looking at some correct answers and choosing the best one. And I think I actually really started to get nervous. I felt like I was guessing between two answers too often. And so I actually got nervous, couldn't breathe because of my mask, couldn't hear anything, couldn't go to the bathroom, couldn't eat. It was, I thought tests were easy, but I will say it was a little bit nerve-wracking. But I think what was the most helpful was the practice exams. If you're familiar with some of these mobile phone apps like Quizlet, a lot of people have actually already made flashcards for the CFRE, and you can just, like instead of writing them on your own, you actually just swipe on your phone, and people have already created these sets. Yeah, if you're not using Quizlet, your kids probably are. I remember I was a flashcard person, so you would sit there and write them. Well, people basically have done that on their phone and saved them, and you can search for them and find a number of CFRE decks of flashcards available to you. And I would do it like on the treadmill or something. It's really kind of easy kind of do it in the moment on the go. So I would really recommend that. But I will say the practice exams were super helpful. They even take some questions from those exams. It just gives you a good sense of what the questions are like. But yes, 200 questions in 4 hours is pretty daunting. And I will say, kind of having a little anxiety during it, I was like, please. And I told everyone about it. So I will say there was a lot of pressure, and everyone knew that I was sitting for it, and I felt the pressure. I was like, you're gonna pass, you're gonna do great. I'm like, I'm glad you think so. I hope so too. But I think for some, testing is hard, but at the end of the day, I don't get to see the correct answers, and I really wish I could, just for my own development. I wish I could see some of the correct answers. I still don't know what venture philanthropy is. So I would maybe look that one up before you take your CFRE. Scott, maybe, did you get that question? Do you know what that is, Gemma? Still don't know what it is. So I didn't.
Question, and I definitely don't know what it is.
I told you to look it up. But yeah, I think it was humbling in the sense that I realized I didn't know everything, and it was also really humbling in that, I think the CFRE is viewed as kind of a black and white exam. Like, we know there's best practice answer. Do we always do that? Maybe not. But I passed easily, and so I was really kind of delighted and surprised and thankful that my best intuition and what people had kind of taught me really held true. So I would say, one, get over your block of, I don't have the time to do this application. You can do it. And I think it's a great exercise to just be reflective and think about what you've done. And it's, there's, again, I don't want to say these are the only metrics. I know we do so much more than dollars raised and hours of volunteer time given. We do, and education hours earned. But it was really, I felt really proud, and I actually printed it out and showed my boss, and I was like, I just want you to see what I've done in my 7 years of fundraising. And I'm sitting for the exam, and I'm nervous and excited, and this is a big deal. And my organization was over the moon. The board gave me a lot of cred. I had a couple board members speak up, like, I don't know if people knew this, but that felt really nice. And they were really proud of, some donors know what those letters mean. And that's not to say that they won't come to you or give you money to your organization if you don't have those, but, especially when we get to those savvy donors like Laura Brown and people we know, they know what those letters mean, and I think they appreciate them too. So I want to say my organization saw a lot of value in it and was so supportive. And then again, a lot of credit to our chapter. I received the scholarship, and that actually was, I think, the final flame. It was like, well, Val was like, you have a year. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I better start then. I guess I'm doing this. It really was kind of the like nail in the coffin type thing. I guess I was like, okay, we're going to do this, and we're going to study for it. And so I think and if you haven't looked up kind of the benefits of having a CFRE, the CFRE website does a really good job of that, because unfortunately, I think we have to really advocate for ourselves and our value a lot. But the CFRE website has done a really good job of that, demonstrating how much more people make in salary. That's a number you can show to your boss. It's like 18% more. It's really significant. And looking at the median and average salaries are much larger than those without it. And that's not to say that your organization is going to cough up a bunch more money, but gives you a leg to stand on. And potentially when you're looking at other opportunities, obviously, those letters are important and meaningful to employers. Again, I think just a clear demonstration of our commitment to the profession and our commitment to fundraising ethically. I'm like Alba, I love the ethics piece. I'm like, oh, no, we're not doing that. And it is, we have the leg to stand on, and we have the letters behind our name to really advocate for that and say, we apparently some people think I know what I'm talking about. Whether you do, that's a different story, but I want you to know by the book that some folks think I know what I'm doing. And it was really, I think it's meaningful. I think I've been fundraising, like I said, for 8 years, and I still have those moments of, the imposter syndrome and doubt. And so I think it really has given me a lot of confidence in myself and in my ability and my knowledge to do this great work. So I think that's kind of why I pursued my CFRE. There were a few tips in there, but I think my message for you all is, if you're thinking about it, just do it. Do it. Find a buddy. It's really helpful to have a study buddy, and go for it. People do fail it. It happens. They retake it. And I will say, just knowing the folks in this chapter, knowing who we've been able to sit from, I've been thinking of people like Simone, that I've been so fortunate to sit down and listen to, and people like Penelope, just how fortunate we are in our small but mighty chapter and then I want to see the local hero, our local folks praise as well. Our consultants that give so much to our chapter, and our presenters. We are so fortunate, and that's how I passed. So I'm just here to talk about how great our chapter is.
Do we want to move into questions? Does anyone have questions? We could put them in the chat, or if you want to use the raise your hand feature, we can call on you to do that. I actually have a question if no one else does, and you could clarify for the amount of money that you have to raise. I had understood that as if you're a part of a team that is fundraising and you don't have personal fundraising goals, you can use what the team has raised. Is that true? Okay, Scott is shaking his head. Yes. All right.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think there's probably a perception that folks are like fine-tuned going through it and verifying that this person is a legit speaker for this session that you went to at this one conference. I don't think it's like that. And in fact, I was impressed to see that not only do you get points for dollars raised, but they also give points for communications projects and things that maybe don't necessarily have a financial impact, but are a part of philanthropy and require high level, fundraising knowledge and skills. And so I want to give some credit. It's not, I think especially for maybe some of those smaller organizations who are like, ooh, that's a lot of money, to raise annually. It's not just about the money. There are points for other things that we do. And so it's not just the money, but I'm glad to see that in the application as well.
And if I may
say that, like, if for your continuing education credits, we added from the scholarship committee, we added continuing education credit that you can apply for at any time. And I encourage you to log on and start filling out your CFRE and see how many more, credits you need, because we're offering every month one person. All you have to do is send me an email, tell me what class you want to take. Everybody gets, I shouldn't say everybody, every month there's a $40 credit for whoever the recipient is to take something that you can use towards continuing education. You can use it towards your CFRE, you can use it for whatever, but I'm a big advocate for continuing education credits. I mean, anytime you can take something. I know our lives are really busy, and you may be, watching this webinar at probably 2 in the morning when you actually have time, but I can't stress enough how important it is to take advantage of the scholarships that we have. Membership scholarships, young professional scholarship, CFRE scholarship, and now we just added this one on there. So go take that class you've always wanted to take, especially if you're in a funk, because COVID happened, we have COVID brain, there's just a lot going on in the world. Go take a class that's gonna re-spark your happiness and re-spark why you love what you do, and we'll pay for it. Like, let us be Oprah here and be like, you get to take a class and you get a webinar. Nothing thrills me more than giving people things. So check it out, go on the website, see what kind of credits are out there, and take a class and re-spark. Sorry, Edna, go ahead, I stole your.
Oh, no, that's okay. And this ties into a little bit more what Scott was saying. In the application, when you are indicating monies raised, there's categories. So as you're doing your fundraising, how much of it is capital campaign? How much of it is a planned gift? How much of it is grant writing? There's there's different categories. So don't feel discouraged if you're stronger in one area or not in the other, because they look at all those different categories. So say, for example, in your capital campaign, you raised $2 million. And $250,000 of that was grant money. So on the application, you indicate $250,000 under grant, and then the remainder under the actual monies raised for capital campaign, because they really try to look at the whole picture of fundraising and the many aspects of it as to how we bring in money for our agencies.
Elise has a question, and then if one of you could address the point that Scott made in the Q&A, but Elise, you go first.
Hi, everybody. So I kind of have this perception of the CFRE that it's for folks who are more extroverts. I don't know if you saw that article in AFP News the other day, but it was about celebrating introverts in fundraising and how an equity of temperament is good. So in my mind, like, I know 100% I'm a diehard fundraiser, but I see myself as more of an organizer as opposed to someone who's approaching donors for major gifts or planned giving. What value would the CFRE have for someone like me?
I'm going to jump in. You're still asking for money, whether it's for a fundraiser or anything else. It goes back to when you're asking someone for a gift, whether it's for a sponsorship, whether it's for in-kind. You can do this in the privacy of their own home. It can be just the two of you. It can be a group presentation. I really don't think personality factors in at all.
Right.
I mean, I'm clearly an extrovert, clearly, but there are so many introverts that enjoy the gift, that ask the request, because it's a personal relationship we're having with someone. I mean, honestly, those are so personal and so meaningful to them. And to be able to say, you know, I just got my CFRE. Well, tell me what your CFRE does. Can you do that in a panel? No. Can you do it one-on-one with someone privately and quietly? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And trust me, we need lots of introverts in the world. More of this is never a good thing. So, you know, introverts unite, please, by all means. Take your test and come out, because I think it's a great mix. I mean, it's the yin to our yang. Whatever we're not doing, you're completing for us.
I'm going to piggyback on that a little bit because I am in queue to take the test, and I am very much an introvert. And I prefer the one-on-one dynamic, and I do a lot of grant writing. So it's a lot of just me and the paper. And one of the reasons why I decided to do the CFRE, aside from the years that I have been working in fundraising, is just to, like, because I don't always toot my own horn, and I'm not always like extroverted and letting everybody know what I do and how great I do it. Having those letters behind my name and behind my experience, I think will help with that, will help to boost that a little bit more, because I don't always talk about, you know, what I do and everything. So.
And to the point that's being discussed, you know, how fortunate we are in fundraising that our industry has a variety of different personalities. I mean, yes, extroverts have their gifts, but so do introverts. I mean, I think of one of the best grant writers I know in fundraising. I mean, she can get a really good grant out before the deadline and bring the money in. But her preference is very much to be left alone in her office to get the materials, to write the grant. She doesn't do it for the kudos. I am in admiration of her, because sometimes it's hard for me to sit still for 20 minutes, much less get a grant out on time. And Alba's laughing because Alba and I would be like passing out coffee to the office. How's your weekend? How you doing? Praise God for the introverts who are getting the work done while the extroverts are passing out coffee, is how I look at it. So yes, Elise and Cynthia, if this is something you're interested in, absolutely pursue it. There is so much room, not only for introverts, but for the specific gifts that you two bring to the profession. We need your specific gifts, Cynthia and Elise.
Thanks, everybody.
I just wanted to make a quick point. I see Scott here and what he commented in the chat room. I called CFRE about 2 weeks ago, and I told them I was getting ready for this presentation. They told me that there are random audits, and they also told me that they do check, in addition to the random audits, as the applications are coming in, they randomly check and see, well, did Edna really work at Planned Parenthood? Did she really bring in that 5 million at the cancer center? They did tell me that they don't do it with every application, but that they do both. Yes.
And I was in a study group that the Greater Arizona chapter had put together a little bit last year, and somebody had been chosen for that audit. And she said it was just a very easy process. She started sending things to the person who had reached out to her. And at some point they said, okay, stop. Yeah, we get it. You're good to go. So it was not a difficult or stressful. It was not an IRS audit. It was just let me just check and make sure that our system is, really capturing, the people and being ethical itself. So not something to worry about, but something to be aware of.
You said that, and when I was thinking IRS audit the whole time, I'm sure you're like inundating their inbox with every piece of paper you can imagine. They're like, for the love of God, we just had one question, calm down.
Yeah. So
I just want to say as we wrap up, if anybody ever has questions and you really don't want to do it on Zoom so that the whole world can hear, you can email us or call us anytime. I mean, clearly we love to talk. So call us, let us know, whatever, there's no stupid questions ever. I mean, there's so many moving parts to CFRE. So anything we can do to help nudge you along, answer any questions, shoot us a text, give us a call, send us an email. We're a resource for you. We've already been through it all. So why torture you through it? I mean, let us just help you. So let us be your like little Obi-Wan, Edna was mine. It's time for me to pay it forward and get someone else through it. So, but honestly, I said, we say it all the time. There are no stupid questions. Call us anytime. We'll get you through some of the most bizarre questions. We'll help you study. We'll do whatever you need us to do because we just want to encourage you to get through it.
yeah. I put my email in the chat box if you all want to reach out. And to Alba's point, if there's something you want to ask or something else you're wondering about, Alba and Travis and I are committed not only to giving this presentation, but we hope that this is just the starting point for you. So if you have questions, please feel free to reach out to us. I relied on many people as I was moving forward with my exam. So like Alba says, I'm happy to pay it forward.
Edna, can you tell us if there's a day and time for the local CFRE study group? Have we put that together yet?
We have not yet. There's
Okay.
a person who indicated an interest, but they're still trying to figure out their sched. So when I have a happy captive audience, I will work around their schedules. Yeah.
So anyone who is interested in joining a local study group, Edna is our CFRE chair for the board. So we're trying to put that together, and I would be very interested in participating as well.
Okay.
And
I'll make it fun for you all. I really will. It's a study group, but this isn't like, a college study group for physics. This will be fun.
And I think we have one more question from Amy.
Two now.
Ooh.
Are we going to have coffee at that study group?
Wine, Amy, but okay, if you want coffee, fine, we'll do coffee.
I was just piggybacking on what you said before. I do have a question with regard to the 6 sections. When you're taking the exam,
Yeah.
do you just pace yourself through the 200 sort of at an equal rate, or do you recommend that you allot more time for 1 or 2 of those 6 sections in order to complete on time?
Right.
And thank you.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, that's very individual. For me, my approach, as I mentioned, was what I did on the multi-state with the bar exam, and that I found that if I paced myself 25 questions every 30 minutes, it helped me to stay on track. The way the exam is set up, if you don't answer a question, it will remind you at the end, don't forget about question, whatever. Also for me, when I'm taking a multiple choice exam, I can easily start to overthink it if I don't know the answer. And that's not the mental energy I want to use for an exam. A multiple choice exam for me is not where I want to freak out. It's different than an interview or an essay exam. So I just created the muscle memory to study the areas that I wasn't as strong on a little bit more. And so I certainly studied those all, but I paced myself equally. Alba and Travis, what
I
do
was
you?
gonna say, I don't know if this is a change from when you and Alba maybe sat for the exam, but there are no sections. It's just 200 questions.
Ah.
One question per on the screen. On the screen, you hit next, it goes to the next one. But so there are no sections. There are no like divisions of this is the volunteer section. Nope, it's all mixed together. It's all random.
Yeah.
And there is like a way to flag a question if you want to go back to it, and then it will remind you if you haven't answered one. So I wish I had thought about this a little bit more, but I wasn't quite prepared for what it would look like. But my approach was to go through all the questions, and then I had marked the ones that I was like, I want to go back to these ones. But what happened was I had marked almost half of them, so I actually just went through the entire deck again. But to Edna's point, I didn't change many answers. At the end of the day, I just trusted my gut.
Yeah.
So I think there could be a lot of different approaches, and I think it might depend on the person and kind of their personality and how they feel comfortable taking tests. But no sections. It was just go through all the questions, and if you want, you can go to the ones you've marked, or you can go through all of them again. There are some opportunities. I was probably there for about 2 hours and 15 minutes. It didn't take me the full course. So plenty of time. Time was not the issue. It was more like, why am I guessing between two answers on almost every question? and freaking out about it.
And Travis brings up a good point. When you're sitting for the exam, he's right. It's not like it says, okay, this is the donor research section, or this is the ethics section. I should have prior used the words categories, that you study them all and they are all jumbled into one. So you might be answering an ethics question, and then before you know it, you have a relationship building question. I still remember one of my questions in particular that said, a planned gift is a wonderful way for a donor to leave their legacy. B, a way for a donor to take care of their own family while also planning for their legacy future. C, a way to be memorialized through your gift. Or D, a good way to plan your finances. So I knew it wasn't D, all right? But think about it, depending on the day, any of those questions are the answer. And that's why I think testing yourself is crucial, because you start getting into the mode of, now that I know the material, what is the answer they're looking for? These are two different things. I suspect a lot of you already know the material without having studied. The purpose to study is how this exam will test you.
So what was the right answer, Edna?
I don't know, but I got it right. You know, that any of those could be the answer. It's crazy. I was discussing this with my husband. He's getting ready to be admitted in Arizona, and the ethics exam still does that. And I remember when I sat for the ethics exam. So, you know, they're just trying to, I don't know, mess with your mind. But I was Obi. I was already Obi-Wan Kenobi going into it. So
There we go.
I suggest that.
We are past time, but before I let you all go, I'm turning over the floor to Scott, who has something to say and something to ask the crowd.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to thank our esteemed presenters for just a wonderful presentation, and I agree with everything every one of you said, which I'm sure is always the case anyways. But one of the things that Travis said in particular is that we have a small but mighty chapter, and this is one thing that Sarah and I have been learning more and more as we've been participating in some national conversations and webinars with other chapters around the country, is that our chapter has it together. We've got a wonderful board, which is, you know, Ori has been really thoughtful in putting together these programming sessions over this year and into the future. We've got this fantastic idea committee who is just on the leading edge of where we need to be, and Elise, who's been putting together this BIPOC affinity group, and just so many people who are and aren't on this call who are doing wonderful work in establishing this community of supportive fundraising professionals in Tucson. We know that over this past year, our our official membership has gotten smaller. People have lost jobs, and things are just tough, and they're hopefully on their way back, but not quite there yet. And so we're asking for your support. If you are a member now, if you have the ability to do so in a small or large way, we've got our annual Locally Grown campaign, which helps us with scholarships of all types. We had a great opportunity last year because CFRE International gave us some membership scholarships to hand out. They were trying to help chapters to kind of get through some of this. And so it gave us the opportunity to say, okay, well, then how do we want to use our scholarship money? Does it all goes towards memberships? Is it going towards young professional memberships so we can encourage young people to take on fundraising as a profession? Does it go towards CFRE scholarships? Because we know we have people like Cynthia who are really interested in just, kind of taking ownership of their profession. And so we'd love your support. We've got the link, thank you, Ori, in the chat right now. Every little bit helps, as you all know. We also have the option to make a recurring gift on there. So if you know that you'd like to donate, $100 this year, but you'd rather break it up into, $5 to $10 increments monthly, you can do that and just kind of set it, as we know we're all encouraging all of our own constituents to do as well. So we're going to follow our best practices there. But we'd really love for you to consider making that gift to support your fellow members, especially those who are maybe struggling a little bit right now, and having them be able to be better connected to our community and find that next job, obtain that Cfre certification so that they can find that next job would be really helpful. So the board are all donors. I'm a donor myself, and I would encourage you all to consider that gift as well. So looking forward to seeing your name and writing you a nice little thank you note.
Thanks, Scott. And Edna and Alba and Travis, thank you so much. This was really inspiring, and I am so grateful to you and all of the work that you do for our community. And with that, we're going to stop the recording and everyone can get back to their Friday.